Hello and welcome to Synder. Dash is here and I'm thrilled to guide you through. In this video, we will go through Synder's flow with QuickBooks Desktop from scratch to the final account setup for e-commerce and SaaS businesses. So stay tuned. A quick overview of Synder capabilities you'll learn today. Automated data sync from all your sales channels. Accurate records of data in your books with our clearing account. Detailed P&L reports by products, subscriptions, and sales channels. One-click reconciliation, even for multiple platforms. For e-commerce businesses, such things as smooth inventory tracking in your books, POS and cash transactions management, accurate reports for tax filing, also management of processing fees, automated tracking of discount, shipping, gift cards, and more. And for SaaS businesses, the receive payments functionality to collect credit card payments from your clients in one click. The demo will be structured this way. I will start with the account creation and platforms connection. Then we'll check how to sync transactions, how they look in the books, and how to adjust Synder settings for your needs. We will also see the P&L report, reconciliation flow, and some other useful features for sure. So let me share what Synder is in brief. Synder is a software designed to automatically import all ongoing transactions from sales channels like Shopify, Amazon, Stripe, PayPal, and many others into accounting systems like QuickBooks, online or desktop, Xero, or inbuilt Synder accounting module. The detailed synchronization feeds your accounting system with all the information necessary for detailed reporting. And features like skip duplicates ensure that reconciliation of sales from multiple systems is no longer a painful process. Besides, you can also use Synder to quickly generate a checkout page and receive money from your customers. So the idea is to unite similar business tools under one roof. So let's get started. This is the very first step in the software where we will create an organization together. It's like an ecosystem that will unite your books and all the online sales channels. Just fill in all the organization fields. Once done, click Next, and now we are to select your sales channels. See the list available here as well. I would recommend connecting literally each platform, especially if you have an e-commerce store like Shopify with several payment gateways. Like in my case, I accept payments in Shopify+Stripe, so I connect them both to Synder. And Synder will ensure that there are no duplicates and the information is taken from all places. If you have several accounts with one payment gateway, let's say several Stripe accounts, you'll be able to connect one of them on the next step, and you can add more platforms later once the account is created. Speaking of accounting platforms supported at the moment, you can connect QuickBooks, online or desktop, Xero, and Synder accounting. You'll be able to disable or enable synchronization for any platform at any time, or even undo every change to your books if something goes in a wrong direction. I will show Synder flow on the example of QuickBooks Desktop, Shopify, and Stripe today, but the process is nearly the same for all other platforms. So we just select QuickBooks Desktop here and hit Next Step. And at this step, let's connect your accounting platform. Grab the connection guides for your specific accounting platform above in the Setup Assistance section. Synder will work with its data in a super secure mode, so no worries. Synder connects your QuickBooks Desktop through the connector we are to download now, so several tips for QuickBooks Desktop integration. If your QuickBooks Desktop company file is located on a server, make sure that Synder connector is also installed on the server. This way, the proper connection could be established. If it's just like on your local PC, just install the connector there. And the second thing, before installing and opening the connector, check if your QuickBooks Desktop is launched with admin rights and in a single user mode. And no worries, it's only needed for the first time connection. Then you can open QuickBooks Desktop in a multi-user mode and no admin rights will be required. So now we just hit connect, and my QuickBooks Desktop company is located on my local computer. I also have it launched with admin rights and in a single user mode. So I just hit download connector, open the downloaded file, and proceed with the installation. And now we just finished the installation itself. And now, as the connector is launched, a QuickBooks certificate pops up to grant Synder permissions to connect. So mark this option, click Continue, and then click on Done. Now, Synder connector is connected to the QuickBooks Desktop company file, and one final step is to activate the connection between the connector and Synder in your browser. For that, we go back to Synder, click Generate, Then copy the key, paste it into connector, and click Activate. And boom, the connection is established. So now we just hit Next. And right here, an important note, both Synder Connector and QuickBooks Desktop Company must be launched on your computer or server so the synchronization could happen. So don't close any of these components until all the needed transactions are synced. And now it's time to connect our sales channels one by one. If you're not an admin, invite the owner through this option and let them securely enter the credentials on their end. Then you'll be able to proceed. If you're an admin, just follow Synder's instructions to proceed with the connection. So in case with Shopify, we need the Shopify store name. So we just type it here as it is in your Shopify store and hit connect. Since I'm the admin, Synder will just redirect me to the page with my Shopify store, where you'll be able to grant Synder permissions to actually connect. And one final step of the connection is to select your checking account for payouts. It should be your bank to which your payment provider or e-commerce sends money deposits. If your bank is not connected to your accounting system yet, just skip this step and you'll be able to change the setting later once the bank is connected. An important note, it won't duplicate any existing bank feed records, but it's needed for the automated reconciliation. Because Synder syncs not only sales transactions and fees to the clearing account, it also syncs the payouts from clearing account to the checking account. And these payouts or settlements or deposits, they are needed for smooth matching under your bank feed. You can also check out more info in the questions section above. Once done, we just continue with the connection of Stripe. So it's done basically the same way. We just hit connect since I am the admin of this Stripe account. And the same way, Synder also redirects me to the Stripe page where I just hit connect button one more time. And again, this final step for each platform is to select the same checking accounts that we selected on the previous step. So just be careful if you have like different bank accounts, just make sure you select the needed one. And just in case, again, it's also possible to change the setting at any time once you finish this connection steps in Synder. So my bank is selected here, all is good. So we just hit continue. And the next step would be just hitting finish connection and you're ready to go. So now as we have everything connected, let's see how Synder can be set up. The best course of action on a trial would be to check how the results of the synchronization look in your books, tailor settings a bit, and after you verify everything looks good, subscribe to automate the synchronization of ongoing transactions. So let's go through this process together. First of all, we end up on the control panel. Here you'll be able to quickly check how both your business and Synder accounts are doing. Control panel will basically help you track if all is smooth with the connection, so you could also reconnect platforms if it's needed. Here you can also just make sure that the auto import feature is enabled for your connected platforms. In my case, it's disabled just because I'm on the free trial. So on all of the plans that we provide, it's possible to enable this feature. You'll also be able to see the generic gross sales report that you have so far. And down below the page, you'll be able to check the import statuses of your recent transactions. So basically, we don't have anything imported yet. So with QuickBooks Desktop, we'll just need to make sure that the proper connection is established for the actual synchronization of your transactions. So the testing process will be kind of the manual one, but it's really just like a couple of clicks. So we see that we have like 16 transactions that were not imported yet. And basically, this is what we're going to work with. Those are just the recent transactions from my Shopify and Stripe that Synder just automatically imported, just some of them for the recent month from both platforms. So we'll have some data to test Synder on. So now let's go to Platform Transactions tab to actually sync some transactions and check the results. So as I mentioned, as soon as the new sales platform is connected to Synder, the software imports 10 recent transactions from each connected platform. And you can also import data for the last month on a free trial, so you'll have some transactions to test it out, as I'll show you a bit later. All the new transactions will be synchronized automatically on the background as long as your account has an active subscription on it. And both Synder Connector and QuickBooks Desktop Company are launched on your computer. So again, the manual sync that we'll do a bit later is only needed for testing purposes and also for working with historical data. So I connected all the platforms to Synder, and the next step will be just to sync a couple of old transactions that Synder imported for us and check how they look in QuickBooks. We'll go with these two transactions. So I just select them like that, click on the green sync button at the top and choose sync. And now, as their statuses are changed to green synced ones, it means that they both are in my QuickBooks Desktop company. So let's go and check them out. We can also click Explain button under this green synced status on the transaction to see what objects were created. For sales transactions, we'll mostly create sales receipts in QuickBooks Desktop, and along with them, we'll also record some checks that will be representing processing fees. In my case, those are processing fees of Stripe. If you have some invoice payments in your sales channels like Stripe, PayPal, or any others, Synder will also be able to handle them as the actual invoices plus payments, so they will be closed with each other, and the same way you'll also be finding them in your QuickBooks company. To find synced transactions in QuickBooks, we open Chart of Accounts and double-click our clearing account, Stripe one. All sync transactions from Stripe end up there, and you can also easily overview all of them, as this account imitates the actual Stripe that you have in real life. Same thing, it will happen if you connect several sales channels to Synder, so for each of them, you'll have at least one clearing account created. There also might be several accounts, like I have with Shopify in my case. That's also totally okay, because in some platforms there are cash transactions, POS transactions, check ones, and we just treat them separately, so it would be easier to reconcile. So it's also the flow that Synder sticks to. And in our Stripe clearing account, we have everything that we've seen so far. So those two transactions, which makes it 4 objects in total. So the payment and the check for one transaction, and the sales receipt and the check for another transactions. So just the reminder that payments and sales receipts, that's the way how we reflect actual sales in QuickBooks, and checks are for the processing fees of this or that platform you're using. So let's check out this sales receipt that we have for the transaction that we opened in Synder, and it already has some details like customer name. We also see that the product name is in the description, so it's set to coffee, and the item itself is set to the default Stripe product. So this is kind of the default item that we use on charges coming from Stripe, because those transactions, they usually don't have the fixed field for the product name, and usually it's specified in the description. So again, a pretty common case for Stripe users. And this transaction also does not have taxes, since I just obviously don't have them in my Stripe account. So in Stripe, I have this payment with the customer details, the date, the amount, the processing fees, and the item name is specified in the description. So a bit later, we'll see how to adjust Synder to this flow, and we'll be able to check settings overall. Before we do that, here's also the check part that represents Stripe processing fees. And this category for Stripe fees is also set by default. It's different for each platform, like Amazon fees, Shopify ones, and so on. So if needed, you can also change it later in Synder settings. So let's go through the settings of Synder as well. For that, we open Settings tab on the left, scroll down the page a bit, and click Configure button under Stripe. If you have several sales channels, even like I do, you'll have kind of the block for each of them, and separate settings for each of those platforms as well. There are a lot of different cool features, believe me. We'll go through the most important ones to adjust the way how sync transactions look. So probably the most important settings are the product ones. And before we talk about how Synder treats products in general, let's just enable the feature that we need the most right now to get the product name from a description of the transaction or order. So that's exactly what we need, because again, we have this coffee as the item name in the description of the Stripe charge. So with this feature on, Synder will be able to treat those transactions in the right way and use the whole description as the item instead of the generic Stripe product that we currently have by the default setup. As for the way how Synder overall treats products, it works in the following way. It can either create a missing product in your accounting company during the sync, or match to the existing item in your accounting company based on the SKU or item name. So during the synchronization, Synder will basically take a look at the item name or SKU of your product in your e-commerce store or payment gateway, let's say like in my case, Stripe, then look at my QuickBooks product list and see if there is the SKU or item matching what we have in Stripe or in Shopify. If neither SKU nor name match, Synder Synder will create a product with a type and income account specified here in settings. So it's also possible to control how the new products will be created. So Synder will categorize income based on the income categories linked to the products in your QuickBooks. So just make sure that you have categories properly linked there. And Synder also accounts for cost of goods sold and inventory the same way. So just if the item names are the same or SKUs are the same between the platforms, let's say Shopify and QuickBooks, it will be enough for Synder to just find those items during the sync and adjust the inventory for them if they're of inventory type, account for cost of goods sold, and for income categorization, of course, as well. And if you don't need all the product names and inventory tracking in your books and just want to track all the income for the platform in a single category for a profit and loss report, also useful usually for cases where people have different sales channels and it's enough to have just several lines in the P&L like Amazon sales, Shopify and Stripe sales and so on. You can also use the common product at the top. So you just set the drop down above to common, and in the second drop down you select the product that you would like to see on all transactions synced from this platform going forward. And based on this info, Synder will categorize them correspondingly. So they will have this product, no individual details, just this one item, and all sync transactions correspondingly will go to its income accounts. And now let's also quickly go through some other settings, several more very important things. First of all, what will be very important in sales, expenses, and fees tabs is our clearing account. So it's Stripe in our case. And just make sure that it's set here in Synder settings and all sync transactions will end up there. Moving forward, we also have the taxes settings, another super tricky part, but let me nail down for you. They will be different based on your country and platforms connected, but the key point is to have this feature on and to have tax details in your payment gateways, like Stripe in my case, or eCommerce platforms, and taxes enabled ideally in QuickBooks. Then taxes will be just applied automatically, so no additional setup is needed. We also have the option to apply the default tax code. Basically, it works in such a way that it just adds the name of the tax rate to the transaction, and the amount of the tax itself, it's not changed. So it's only the name of the tax rate that's changed. So that's exactly what we need in our case, out of scope tax, zeroed out. So we just select this tax rate that we have here, and we're almost done with settings. In the expenses tab, again, this is our clearing account, and in fees tab, clearing account again, and the category for Stripe fees I mentioned a little bit earlier. And of course, the payouts tab, the last but not the least, just make sure that this feature is on and that your checking account is specified here. So yeah, we can also create some additional settings for different transaction types. Usually it's more of the kind of sophisticated setup, but sometimes it's still needed to somehow differentiate between different transaction types and treat them differently. So this option is also available. And once we make sure we've done all the necessary adjustments in settings, just click Update to save them. And basically, both with the manual sync of transactions we'll do now, and once the auto sync is enabled, so with the auto sync, all future transactions will be synced according to this settings adjustments. Transactions that have been synced so far won't change retroactively in QuickBooks. So let's see how we can change that. We can just go back to Platform Transactions tab. And now we can roll those transactions back. So basically just eliminate them from QuickBooks to resync them with the correct settings. For that, we select just this one transaction, hit sync, and roll back. Just note that the rollback action does not restore sync credits on your balance, so always better to go with a couple of transactions for testing purposes. And now as this transaction is deleted from my books, we can just again change the settings as we just did, and then again resync this transaction with the correct settings this time. So for that, we just click sync and then sync again. And now as it's synced, let's check how it looks in QuickBooks. And for that, we just open chart of accounts and our clearing account again, and let's check our sales receipt. And boom, so now it has the correct item and it also has the tax applied to it. So that's exactly how I want to see this transaction in my books. And now let's check how it affects the reports in QuickBooks. Here is our profit and loss report, how it looks after the sync. And as you see, different income categories with the corresponding amounts show up there. And Synder handles this income categorization automatically based on the product names or SKU numbers. Synder, by the way, can also apply location, so you can get even more detailed profit and loss report with us. And we have some parts already accounted for in the cost of goods sold category. And for Stripe fees, we also have some information already recorded. So that's basically how quick and easy Synder will help you to fill in this report. Inventory gets updated in QuickBooks as well, as I mentioned, for products that are of inventory type and the names of which match to the item names in your sales channels, as Synder again just matches them by those item names or SKUs from all of the connected platforms. So my QuickBooks will be showing the actual inventory available. And before we proceed with the reconciliation, let's also import some historical data. So as I mentioned, Synder allows importing 1 month of historical data on a free trial. On other plans, it's like 1 year or there is no limit. So let's switch to Import Historical Data tab, select the platform, set the time range, and click Import Preview. It's also possible to go with the Sync Right Away option. It will be just mostly the case when you already verified that Synder settings look good, checked quite some of the sync transactions just to make sure that everything is okay with the sync details in QuickBooks. So we'll just for now go with Import Preview option for testing purposes and see how it works going forward. So as you see, this action just brings all data into Synder, so you can sync it manually in a couple of clicks. It's the recommended option if you haven't checked how some of the already synced transactions look in the books. And if you're already confirmed that you are satisfied with the results, you can also click Sync right away. So now as all transactions for the recent month we selected are imported, we will find them in the Platform Transactions tab with this blue Ready to Sync status, basically meaning that transactions are in Synder, but not in your books yet. You can sync them manually in a couple of clicks by selecting only the transactions that you need. Also, it's possible to go with all transactions on one page or on all pages. We'll go just with this once, and we'll sync them like this. All the historical transactions are to be synchronized like this, and actually can do this at any time for any period. Even if you come to Synder in December and you want to do the bookkeeping for the whole year, starting in January, it's easy. Note that each transaction is synced individually for the most detailed reports. And basically, one sync credit that we have like on the balance is needed for syncing one individual transaction as well. And we consider each individual payment, invoice payment, refund, payout, and so on, an individual transaction requiring the sync. So we only don't use sync credits for syncing processing fees. And this manual sync is only needed for testing purposes and again for importing and syncing historical data. By the way, a note regarding historical data, the sync there happens just the same way as with new transactions. So in both cases, we require those sync credits to push the data to your book. So basically the process is the same. And all new transactions, again, will be synchronized automatically as soon as there is the option to enable the auto import in Synder. And again, in order to check the results, we just go back to QuickBooks, open our chart of accounts and our clearing account of Stripe. And as I mentioned, the whole Synder flow is kind of tied up to this clearing account, Stripe one in our case and Shopify ones as well, because everything synced from Stripe will end up here. And for each platform, again, there will be separate clearing accounts. They are created by us actually automatically, just mirror the actual money flow that you have. And now we can see that the balance of this account is zeroed out. And basically, it just means that we synced all of the transactions up to date so far. So all of the sales, all of the processing fees, all of the refunds, if there were any, and all of the payouts as well. So basically, we sync not only individual transactions, but also those money transfers, like lump money sums that your sales channel deposits to your bank with a certain frequency, just in case, again, they are not duplicating anything in the bank feed. Those are just details about the real money transfers that happen that are needed for smooth reconciliation. So while we're also in clearing account still, another tip is to check the balance of this clearing account. If it's zeroed out, it means that everything is working properly, you're synced up to date, and you're good to proceed with the reconciliation. If you see, let's say, the positive balance on the account, it might happen that just not all of the payouts were synced so far. Maybe some refunds are still pending, so it's also totally okay. Just once those transactions will be available for the synchronization, Synder will right away grab them and sync them to your books to make the balances equal and zeroed out. If you see the negative balance, also another tip, just make sure that all of the sales were synced so far, because the negative balance here, it might appear if not all of the payments were synced so far. So just make sure you synced up all of them. And going back to the positive balance, you can also actually just compare it to the balance of your real Stripe, because it's also the often situation where you just can check the balance in your Stripe. Once you received quite some payments and the payout was not made yet, if Synder already seeing that details up to date, then you'll see the same balance of this clearing account. So if everything works properly, your Stripe clearing account, as well as clearing accounts for other connected processors, should always be reconciled, as Synder will basically update them with new details from the sales channels instantly or daily. And let's also check our P&L report one more time, as we synced quite some historical data, and we see more income categories appear on this report. More transactions were synced. There are also some invoices, as I mentioned, if there are some invoice payments synced, and also the details about processing fees. And I only have processing fees of Stripe, because in Shopify I mostly accept payments via Stripe only. So that's just the way how Synder treats e-commerce transactions. We'll also talk about it just in a couple of minutes. So yeah, let's go ahead and check how we proceed with the reconciliation. So I open the bank feed and open that transaction list. And we also see 3 matches here so far. So basically it means that we synced 3 payouts and QuickBooks just automatically found the matches for them. So again, just reminding of the flow with the clearing account that we have. We sync all of the individual sales there. Its balance is growing up by the net amount of the sales, just like in Stripe once you receive money, payments from your clients. Then you sync the payouts and we make transfers from this clearing account to your checking. And this transfer is also reflected in your bank feed, just the way that we see here. And we have these 3 matches. They are made automatically by QuickBooks based on the amounts and the dates. So we can just approve them in batch like that, and we're good to proceed with the reconciliation. And now let's also check how Synder works with e-commerce transactions. So as I mentioned, in my case, is the flow where people order something in Shopify, but pay with a credit card, and the payments go through Stripe directly. So technically, I have those transactions in both places, in Stripe and in Shopify. But here is what I have in Stripe for this order, like just the customer details. So just basic details about the date, the amount, and that's it. So no tax details and no product details. And if there is some shipping information, maybe discounts, gift cards, also it's not specified in Stripe, but we have everything specified in Shopify. So we have the product, flowers, we have the tax details, and let's see how Synder actually treated this transaction. Basically, it works in such a way that if Synder sees that in your e-commerce store, let's say Shopify, you accepted the order and the payment was made through Stripe, we also go to Stripe to check for the details about this order. So it's extremely important to connect all of the platforms that you have, just so no details will be missing from this or that order. So that way, that will be just one transaction in QuickBooks, but with the details from both sources. So here we also have this payment for €9 in Synder, and let's check how we have it recorded in QuickBooks. So again, just opening our clearing account for Stripe, because again, Stripe is the payment gateway on this transaction. So again, it's completely normal to see this transaction as Stripe one both in Synder and in QuickBooks. And here's what we have on the sales receipt. So the product details are there, the tax is also here. So it also looks pretty good. And that's the way how we treat e-commerce platforms and transactions from there. And one more thing I wanted to offer you today is our receive payments functionality. With its help, you can use Synder for receiving credit card payments from your clients in a couple of clicks. And the most beautiful part is that Synder will also automatically account for the received payments. An important note, Synder is not a payment gateway itself, but it works powered by Stripe or Square. So one of these platforms should be connected to Synder, so this functionality could be available. So let's check out the payment links feature that we have. Basically, it's the functionality, again, allowing you to receive those credit card payments just from this link that you create for your clients. So in order to create the link, you just set the currency in which you would like to receive payments, fill in the amount or leave this field blank so your clients will be able to enter it themselves. enable or disable these two options and click Save. And as the result, we have two links. The longer one can be pasted directly to your website, and then you'll have this green pay button on it, and people will be able to proceed with payments this way. Or the shorter one can also be pasted to your Instagram bio, Twitter, Facebook, or just sent out via any messenger or email. And here's what your client will see once they will follow this link. So basically, they will just need to enter the payment method details and also provide the full name and the email. So just have this information recorded on the payment once it's received. And if you haven't specified the amount while creating the payment link, your clients will also be able to set the amount themselves. So as you see, the page is powered by Stripe. We just enter the amount, click Pay. And now as the payment is complete, it goes directly through my Stripe account. So here it is. And again, that's the most beautiful part, is that Synder accounts for this payment itself automatically. So here it is already being synced to my QuickBooks. And if we refresh the page, we'll see that it already was synced to my books. And the same way, we also created the sales receipt for the sales details, the check for Stripe processing fees. So this process can also work this way with the payment links. And one more very important feature in Synder is our business insights. That's actually like the list of very important reports based on which you'll be able to proceed with some business decisions, because here you'll be able to see not only some cash flow analytics like total sales report for the needed amount of time, but also such things as top and least performing customers, products, and so on. So this info also will be very helpful, both if you're just starting the business or you're in business for quite some time already. And finally, we can finish the configuration by subscribing to any of the suitable plans and automating the data sync. As you can see, Synder can automatically sync transactions, fill in all the reports, automate the reconciliation, update inventory, and many more. But don't think it's just bookkeeping, as Synder literally helps you to enhance your business. As all the processes are now automated in your books, you have plenty of free time to invest it into other branches of your business, especially knowing your numbers from the detailed reports provided in Business Insights by Synder. So you can see the most beneficial products, locations, or clients, and grow your business instead of keeping the books. So that's how quick and easy Synder actually works. Now, once the results of the synchronization look perfect, go ahead and subscribe with no per integration costs, unlike other apps, to enjoy the complete automation of your online sales bookkeeping. It's been my pleasure guiding you through. You can also find plenty of useful guides and video tutorials on the Help Center on the left. And for any additional help, just apply to us via chat, phone, or email, as we're available almost 24/7.